Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. We are very excited for everyone to join us for this webinar on compliance for the cannabis industry and really how to use a quality management system to help with your accreditation efforts. Dr. Ross, who is our presenter, and I are very excited that everybody that is on this call has been able to join us today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Karen Arriviaga, and I am an account executive here at Qualtrax. And just some housekeeping things to touch on before we get started. Number one, this webinar is going to be recorded. So if you would like to watch it again or share it with other people in your organization, we will have a recording of it. And that will be available on our website. Also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, we recommend that you feel free to put those in the question and answers area within the Zoom webinar application. We'll be happy to go through those at the end, and we have a scheduled Q&A session at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you might have throughout the presentation. So before we get started and I hand it off to Dr. Ross, I want to start by just telling you a little bit about Qualtrax and who we are as an organization. Qualtrax is an all-in-one compliance management solution. And so what that means is that we give you a full kit of tools to use to help manage your quality initiatives that you'll be able to see here today. We also pair that with our team commitment to our customers and the industries that they're in. And so we find that if we can truly understand what our customers are going through in terms of compliance, we can make sure that that's top of mind when we're thinking about new product functionality, but then also how we service our customer base. We ourselves are ISO 9001 and use our own product to help manage that accreditation. We've been around for 25 years. We are happily celebrating that anniversary. We've been helping organizations with those compliance initiatives since. Something we're really proud about, we've got a 97% customer renewal rate. Our customers are our best assets, and we really value those relationships to learn how they're using the product, what we can do to improve that experience for them. We really value that. And then if you are familiar at all with Virginia Tech, we are located in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is the southeast or western part of the state. So this time, I'm going to introduce you to our main presenter today, and we can get into this part of the presentation. Dr. Kim Ross has her BS in biochemistry from Montana State University, and then she went on to get her PhD from the University of Colorado in Boulder in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. She herself has developed quality control materials for the cannabis matrix. She also has a keen interest in contributing to standardized methods development in the cannabis industry. She is an ongoing participant in the ASTM D37 Cannabis Committee for Standards Development. And she's also a participant with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and there's Cannabis Regulatory Work Group. Dr. Ross has personally evaluated Qualtrax to be used in multiple cannabis laboratories. So at this time, Dr. Ross, if you could join me, I will go ahead and turn over the slide deck to you.
Thanks so much, Karen. And thanks to all our attendees. As Karen said, we're very excited to present this content today. I wanted to start by saying a few words about accreditation. So I like to think of accreditation as being very beneficial to a laboratory. And this includes accreditations such as ISO 17025 for testing laboratories, as well as laboratories that are under the NELAC system, so that Institute for Accreditation. These accreditation bodies are third-party, unbiased assessors. And so they are really functional in helping a lab identify weaknesses and make improvements that are necessary to sustain accreditation. They should be viewed as a resource, as a friend. They help evaluate labs for many industries, and they can bring that knowledge over. So they oftentimes work under the FDA system for food safety, the EPA for water, even forensics laboratories. And they see how other labs that are a little more established do things and can help transfer that knowledge to cannabis. These assessors can also help management prioritize improvements that really need to be made in order to sustain accreditation. So I encourage laboratories to view accreditation and assessors as a resource. Next slide. So what are the benefits of adding quality management software to your quality system? One of the things I find is it really is a stress reducer when you have a regulatory audit pending. So it really elevates the confidence of your key personnel that they have the documents and records needed really at their fingertips for anything that may be asked for during an audit. So by using Qualtrax on a daily basis, you become very familiar with where your documents live, and you can retrieve them when you're asked to. It also allows credentialed access, so approved personnel can log in, and especially at the management level, they can work on the quality system remotely. So you might imagine outside of a 40-hour work week, there may still be quality system tasks to accomplish. And it's nice when you have a digital system, it's not paper-based, it gives you that flexibility to work off-site. So you don't have to be at the lab where you have stacks and stacks of binders of paper. So all of this combined helps minimize risk and maximize adherence to proper procedure. So in a lab with a quality system, you say what you do and you do what you say. And it's really important to follow through and be taking care of those tasks. So Qualtrax reminds you. It has a dashboard that I'm about to show you that shows all the outstanding tasks that need attention. It has email notifications that are fully customizable depending on how often you would like to be reminded through your email platform that you have tasks to accomplish. All of this contributes to having more reliable data coming out of the laboratory for every single sample. So the accountability is there and visibility, traceability. So the personnel activities are tracked within the system with timestamps and by whom the activity was done by. So through that credentialed login system. All of this ensures data protection. The permissions that you can give your employees are fully customizable. So for example, you may have employees that do testing and training within the system and are able to access controlled documents. You may have other employees that are given permissions to actually edit an SOP because they're at a sufficient level within the company to understand when an SOP needs to be updated, make that request from their quality manager, and they're credentialed to edit the SOP. Okay, next slide. So a lot of times when a laboratory is scaling up from a low volume sample load to a high volume sample load, you really feel the need for a digital solution, a quality management system that's software based. So I like to think of it in terms of humans can really accomplish all the necessary tasks to analyze and report 20 samples a day, no problem. But then when that laboratory wants to scale to 100 samples a day, sometimes things will fall through the cracks. We want to treat every sample the way our SOP instructs, such that the data is correct and reliable for every single sample that comes through the laboratory. So if you're not taking care of everything for every single sample and things are falling through the cracks, that can be a compliance issue. So Qualtrax is one solution that provides a very intuitive and user-friendly graphic user interface. So a GUI, a software solution that can be rolled out to basically every employee in the lab if you choose to do so. And so it includes the control document portal with embedded revision history. So every time an SOP or other document is updated, there is a record of who did it and when. Employee acknowledgement, training and testing is a really huge beast to keep track of. So Qualtrax helps do all of this digitally, efficiently, and things don't fall through the cracks. It's especially useful for new employee onboarding. Again, SOP revisions are an ever-present task in a lab. New SOPs are written when new analyses come online. All of this requires approval and release process in order to be compliant. So Qualtrax accomplishes all of that. Another really important thing in a quality system is to review your corrective actions, close them out, make sure they've been addressed properly, and also do the same for your proficiency tests. So unless you pass every single proficiency test you've ever taken, there's an opportunity here for quality management review and possible improvement of the methods. So Qualtrax keeps the lab to task by reminding you and asking you to address these very important quality system elements. Okay, next slide.
All right, well, at this time, Dr. Ross, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can take over and share yours.
Okay, excellent.
And I can see your screen.
All right, great. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the tool, the Qualtrax platform. So I'm starting here at the landing page, fully customizable with your logo. I get there just by clicking on that Qualtrax icon. Now I'm going to move over to my inbox, which I think of as my dashboard. So right now, in this instance of Qualtrax I'm showing you, if you see here, I'm logged in as Kim Ross. I'm the quality manager for this laboratory. And so what I'm going to show you is that I have a lot of functionality in my version of Qualtrax when I'm credentialed and logged in because I'm the quality manager, so I have a lot of power over the system to make new documents, revise documents, initiate workflows, and a bunch of these types of things I'll show you.
And Dr. Ross, I'm actually getting a message that your volume might be a little bit low. So if you could maybe speak up a little bit, that might help some of our attendees.
Okay, thank you. I'll try.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, so right now I'm just looking down here at the bottom of my dashboard to show you the calendar. So in a real life situation, I'd have lots of tasks populated here on the dashboard. At this point, I'm pretty up to date. It's showing me I've got some tasks due next Monday on the 8th. And like I said, normally this would be quite populated. I have some proficiency test monitoring that I'm going to show you here in a second. And I just want to jump to the document tree before we get into addressing the workflow tasks that I have lined out for us today. So I'm going to go over here to the document tree. And what we can see is that my document tree is quite large. So we are looking at this parent folder here for cannabis testing laboratory, just sort of a generic mock laboratory that we've made up for the purposes of this demo. And what I want to show you is today I'm working at Cannatest East. So everything that we'll be doing today is related to our location at Cannatest East. But as a quality manager, I also have access to documents at our other labs. And these other laboratories have chosen to arrange their document tree differently. So if I open up Cannatest North, I see that they've collected all their SOPs in a folder, forms, records, etc. Cannatest South does things differently. So they've collected forms and SOPs per discipline. So you can see everything pertaining to microbiology is in one folder, etc., etc. interestingly, we have this folder here that's grayed out, Cannabis West. And this is a new laboratory that hasn't opened and begun testing yet, but we want to be able to start populating a document tree. And so it's really neat, the functionality in Qualtrax. If I go ahead and look at the templates that I have access to as a permissioned manager, I can see that I have a SOP template for Cannatest East, and this header information, we can create documents that will auto-populate these document ID fields and revision number fields. And this particular template is pertains to documents that are approved for use at the East Lab. And then if I go back to my templates folder here, I can show you that now we've also got a template for Cannatest West. This one is approved for use at Cannatest West. The document ID can be auto-populated again, as long as we use a docm file in Microsoft Word, so a macro-enabled Word file. And then Qualtrax has a really neat functionality that we can take a batch of SOPs that already exist for Cannatest East and repurpose them for Cannatest West by updating the headers and footers automatically within the system. It's a really great feature that I like. Okay, so I'm just going to close up these other laboratory folders because today we're going to be focusing on Cannatest East. And we're just going to tour through this document tree real quick, so bear with me here. So I've organized the SOPs by their level, and we'll go through this in a minute. So normally a laboratory would have many SOPs under each level, but here I've just done one example per level. And then again, the forms would all be populated that are corresponding to the SOPs in these folders. I've dedicated a folder for the quality manual. I collect certified reference material certificate of analyses in my CRM folder. So here I have an example of a certificate of analysis from ResTech for a THCA standard. All these documents are required to be collected and available to the laboratory and to their regulators, so it's super important. Again, all this information at my fingertips. I noticed that here in my material safety data sheet folder, we haven't populated that yet. So let's go ahead and create a document here. It's super easy. Now I've already scanned the document, and so I have access to it. I can import it from my computer, or I have a couple other options for making a new document. In this case, I just want to upload something that I've scanned. And so I'm going to get the safety data sheet for that THCA certified reference material I just showed you. I need to press this upload button to tell the system to take it in, and now I see it. I'm going to automatically publish this revision, this first initial bringing it into the system, because it doesn't need quality management review. It's simply a data safety sheet. And then I'm going to select down here Cannatest East, because this particular standard is located physically at Cannatest East. And the discipline, I'm going to choose receiving, because receiving is responsible for getting this information into the system. Create the document. And again, that THCA standard that came from ResTech, now it tells me in my safety data sheet folder what the hazards are, what I have on hand at my laboratory, if I need to address anything to do with the material or safety. So again, that folder will contain all of the data safety sheets for the lab, as well as the CRM folder would contain all of the certificates of analysis for the materials used in the lab. I also like a folder to collect what we call normative documents, those documents that come from the regulatory bodies. So in Colorado, we are regulated by the MED, the Marijuana Enforcement Division. I really like to have a folder for normative documents because then, as a manager, I can point my employees to the most current revision of these rules, which often change at this point in time. And then we have some audit reports. So we just had an inspection. We put our inspection report there. When we do internal audits every year, we will collect that documentation into folders. I can look at calibration records. So when we get our pipettes calibrated, we have all of that at our fingertips. And so on and so forth. So proficiency testing, I might collect documentation for each of the Emerald tests or other proficiency testing providers. I might collect hard copies of nonconformance reports in a folder. When I do annual management reviews for in compliance with ISO 17025, I would collect those records in folders per year. And then personnel qualifications, so things like transcripts, degrees, resumes are all required by our regulatory bodies for us to have on hand for every employee, as well as training records. So I have folders dedicated to employees for training records as well. So I want to show you an example of document history. So once again, a laboratory would have many SOPs in these levels. I'm going to show you the personnel manual. So up here on this menu bar, I have an option here called Properties. So I'm going to go into the properties of this document. And now I can see I've associated some standards with the document. So in this case, for the personnel manual, it would satisfy some requirements under ISO. We could also be under the NELAC system. So these subsections of NELAC, TNI, would be satisfied by this document. And then we can go over revision history here. So Qualtrax is telling you what has happened to this document since it was brought into the system. And that is a summary of the revision history of the document. There's a dedicated tab here that shows us exactly what has happened with this document since it was brought in 2016. So I think that's really great. Not only does it show revision history, it will show, so here's version 8, it will show me what it looked like last revision. So you'll see the personnel manual may have been at the Richmond laboratory, and now we've copied over some of those elements, revised it, and approved it for use at our new laboratory. Okay. Now there's a lot of other customizability in all of those other tabs. We don't have time to get into those today, but just know if I wanted to edit this document, I'd press edit. Maybe I want to make a note to myself of why I checked it out because I might get to this next week. I need to update the format. Let's just say that. And then I would check this document out. Once I check it out, it's no longer available for use in the system. It would be sort of grayed out and not accessible for another person to check out and edit at the same time. Okay. So that is a really brief tour of the document tree. Just know that it's very customizable. It gives you a lot of flexibility on how you want to set up your system based upon your laboratory's needs and who your regulators are. Okay, so the next thing that I'd like you to do, the next thing I'd like to show you is just a quick way to look at the documents in the system. So what I'd like to do is search the documents I have at Cannatest East. So I just want to look at Cannatest East documents. So that functionality will run a query in the system and return to me the published documents, and then you'll see the personnel manual is currently in edit. And that's going to increment that revision up to revision 10 when I check it back into the system. That's done automatically by Qualtrax, and it tells me this document was created in 2016. It expires next April, currently in edit status. So this is a really nice way to know what's in the system. You can also use it to produce a master document list, which is a requirement for many accreditation systems. It's a really neat functionality, and you can also export to CSV or Excel document in order to have a paper-based version or PDF version if you so desire. Okay. So I'm back at my dashboard. Now I'd like to show you some proficiency test monitoring workflows. So as we know, it's Emerald test time of year. So what I've done is today at work, I've started initiating the proficiency test monitoring workflows and assigning them to the appropriate analyst. So here in this panel, I have 2 proficiency test instances assigned to Anna, and I'm going to show you her dashboard just here in a few minutes. And then you'll see I've got one here that says new instance. So I'm just in the middle of assigning this to Anna. I'm going to open it up here. So this is the proficiency test monitoring workflow. You can see it tells me the current step is proficiency provider and analyst information. So I'm going to tell the system who provided the PT to the lab and who is responsible for carrying out the test. So if I click this, it shows my available employees and users in the system. I'm looking for Anna because she's my microbiologist that's going to carry out the test. The test is under section microbiology. It's from NSI this year. It happens to be a Salmonella PT. It has a test ID. We are the participant, and there's a web code associated with this. So all of these information boxes here are customizable based on how you want this to look. So I've got a section manager as myself. You'll see that this field is required. The technical leader is not required, so I didn't populate it, but I could if I wanted to. I could populate it with myself. A provider due date, so we need to submit these results by next Monday, but I want the chance to review them much sooner than that. So I've set the date that it's due to QA, to the QA department, as tomorrow. So in real life, that would be too short of a time for a microbiology test, but for the purposes of this demo, this is due tomorrow, so I'm going to submit it. And now you can see, instead of new instance, now it's assigned to Anna. And so this is going to populate on her dashboard that she has this task that needs her attention. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is stop sharing this screen and jump over and put on Anna's hat. Can you see my screen now, Karen?
I can.
Excellent. Okay, so now this instance of Qualtrax is Anna's. So now I'm signed in as Anna. You'll see everything looks a little bit different. One of those differences is browser-based. So before I was in Safari and now I'm in Google Chrome. And then the other difference is that before I was a quality manager and now I'm an analyst. And so you can see Anna has a lot of work to do. She's initiated a corrective action request we'll look at in just a minute. She's been assigned these PTs. She has tests and trainings to take care of, and yeah, lots of work for Anna to do, but Qualtrax is able to remind her that these are all the tasks she has to take care of. You can also see in Anna's document tree that she's restricted because she works at Cannabis East. She only gets to see Cannabis East documents. So if she needs to find an SOP, she can go in and view her SOP, get some information there if she needs it, and she knows that she's looking at the right version because all of that is controlled by the quality management system in Qualtrax. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is open up. Anna's just in the middle of submitting a corrective action request. So this is a workflow. To initiate a new one, you just go to the workflow dropdown and click Proficiency Test Monitoring, and it pops up this window. I've just pre-populated a few items here. So the date of occurrence was Monday. This section was quality assurance because it was a quality issue. The QC spike is out of specification. So Anna had a QC that was not acceptable. And she says, what does she do to correct this? She made a new QC standard and this one passed. Okay, so she wants to show her quality manager how this happened. So we can upload supporting documentation here. So I've got my Cannabis East QC prep sheet. She's showing quality management that she re-prepped the quality control standard. I'm going to hit this button here that says Save Changes now that I've made a change to this workflow. Now it's going to let me view what I just uploaded. I'll go check and make sure that it is correct. Oops, hang on one second, just switched windows on me. Okay, back to here. I can't share that pop-up just because of the way this webinar works. So what we did was upload this QC prep sheet, and then it's showing that Anna did indeed re-prep that QC material. And so now I'm going to submit this for review. This is basically going to take the possible nonconformance that I noticed as an analyst and submit it for review to quality management. Now, quality management makes the decision if this is a big problem, which needs root cause analysis and more investigation, or, well, we've already fixed the problem. Corrective action is not required, and we're going to close out this corrective action request. So that's how the workflow goes. This was an internal observation. As the analyst, I noticed a deficit and I took action to correct it. I'm going to submit that to quality control. So now you'll notice that the corrective action request I initiated is now, it's not highlighted here anymore. It's sitting at my quality manager's desk. In this case, the dashboard. That's what I mean by desk. Okay, so let's see here. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at a proficiency test monitoring workflow. So Anna's been assigned 3. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. And I can see that this proficiency test is for salmonella. It has all the fields populated like I showed you from the quality management side. Oops, I just did something weird with my mouse. Sorry about that. Just open it back up. Okay, so I want to attach some supporting documentation for this PT. I'm going to go ahead and attach my raw data file. So I'm picking the Salmonella PT file that I want to upload. I'm going to upload it. Clicking Save Changes is always a really good idea in case you get pulled away from your desk real quick. Now it should let me view this. So I've uploaded the raw data for this PT. I see that I've got some unknown vials for the PT. One of them is positive, so that's how I'll know what to report. And then this field here is required. I need to say how I conducted the test. So I did it by qPCR. And the due date is tomorrow, so I'm ahead of the game. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and submit this to QA. If there was anything, any field there that I didn't populate that was required, Qualtrax would give me an error and ask me to populate that field. And all of that is configurable. So you can decide what fields are required in order for that proficiency test to advance to the next stage. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the next one. This one's different. This is a total yeast and mold test, but let's just take a look at the workflow here. So what I just did, I showed you how from the quality manager's Qualtrax, I submitted it to Anna. It appeared at Anna's dashboard. Anna did the test, she uploaded the raw data and submitted it back to QA. Now it lands at QA for them to review, make sure everything looks good in order to submit it to the provider. And at that stage, you're waiting for the provider to tell you if you pass or fail. So then they provide you a report. And so this instance of the proficiency test monitoring workflow is sitting at quality control's dashboard waiting to be reviewed. So waiting for those provider reports to come back. And so if you've passed, you successfully complete the PT. You upload the provider's report and close out the workflow as the quality manager. If not, you have other pathways of what needs to happen. So the corrective action request workflow that I showed you can be launched directly from the proficiency testing workflow should you observe a failed analyte in your PT or anything like that that is going to require an investigation, and so you'll launch the corrective action. Very, very cool system. So I haven't done this one yet. I'm just going to go back to my inbox. It prompts me, do I really want to leave? Have I made any changes that I didn't save yet? So you have that opportunity to go back and press save if you need to. But I'm just going to go back to my inbox here so I can show you a few more things. Let's see, I'm going to take a look at this ethics training. So Anna has her annual ethics training due, and she completed it, we're going to say on Monday. And it allows you to have, you know, this pop-up box here that allows you to input some comments. So ethics trainings can be fun. That's what she says. And then we just click the box here to say training completed. And then Qualtrax keeps that record for you that says, yes, Anna has completed an annual ethics training. And then all the other employees will do that as well. Let's take a look at a test. So this is another way to get employees to acknowledge that they're proficient and competent in the work that they're doing. So I'll click on this test. It brings up some multiple choice questions. This has to do with the way we sample cannabis. So let's just go ahead and go through this and pick all A's and see what happens. Submit the test. Okay, we did not receive a passing score, but the system will tell you which questions you got wrong so that you can understand, well, I got these right. I need to go look up this information and re-educate myself on what's going on here. And then when I'm ready, I can retake the test. If I just go back to my inbox, it'll prompt me, are you sure you want to leave? Yes, that's okay. And now you can see the test is still here, and I can retake it after I've done some more homework so that I can pass. Okay, so Now what I'm going to do is switch back to the Quality Manager Qualtrax. So give me a second here. Okay, Karen, can you see my screen? Great, thank you. Okay, so we have some items to take care of right now. So you'll see our instance of the proficiency test monitoring in the microbiology department for salmonella is at the stage of QA review. So I'm reviewing this and I agree that the results look fine. Positive and negative controls were all in line. I would be simultaneously submitting these results to the provider, and then they would provide me a confirmation receipt, which I can upload into the system. Shows me the date I submitted it and all that good stuff. I can say a little comment here, data looks good. Positive, negative, controls, good. Okay, great. Now it's going to require me here to upload provider data sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that qPCR documentation. Normally you would upload the provider data sheet, but I don't have a mock one of those right now. I'm going to go ahead and hit upload. It already got it for me, that's good. Oh, whoops, I put in the wrong thing. Excuse me, sorry about that. Let me try that again. So remember, this is just an example. Normally I would put the provider data sheet in here. Scroll down, just click Save Changes. And then just take a look here. Make sure all my required fields are filled out. Everything looks good. Make sure I've selected qPCR. And now my QA review is complete. And now you can see this proficiency test monitoring instance has advanced to the next step. So now we're waiting on the provider's report to come back telling us if we passed or failed. And so that's when we'll initiate the rest of this workflow. Depending on if we pass, we just immediately close it out. If we don't, we have to do some investigation and find out why. Maybe it was just a typo. I mean, that'd be a bummer, but that would be an instance in where we can just close out the workflow. If it's something more serious, we might have to launch a corrective action and look at the method. Why is it not giving us the correct data? So I'm going to go back to my inbox here. And now you can see that this has advanced to waiting on the proficiency provider report. And then Anna has 2 more proficiency tests to complete. Now I'm going to review the nonconformance that Anna submitted. And we do not need a corrective action request in this case because all that happened was a QC was out of spec. We remade the QC. It passed. So I can say new QC standard passed. Did the work stop? No, because we took care of it right away. I'm going to put myself as responsible. I'm going to check that all of my required sections here are filled out. And then I'm going to click this box, corrective action requests not required. So the workflow is right here. When it's not required, it closes out the corrective action request. Nothing further is needed. If it was not this easy, it would start being advanced down this pathway where we need to do some kind of investigation to figure out what's going on here. Oop, I didn't want to press that button. have it. Okay, so I advanced this now to cause analysis and plan development. So now this workflow gets much more involved. There's lots of spots to add, the comments, what's going on, what our plan is, all that good stuff. Should you choose to have a reason to print this, it'll give you a nice PDF. It'll include your workflow. It's a really nice way to look at your corrective actions. Okay, so had I closed this out like I intended to, it would be no longer at my dashboard. It's recorded in the system as an instance, but it's off of my task list. And so one more thing I'll show you. I do have documents in edit right now. It's the personnel manual that I showed you that we checked out. And so this is reminding me, hey, you have a task to complete. You need to address this. It needs attention, and it's going to sit here on the dashboard until I address it. So let's see here. I wanted to mention the proficiency test monitoring workflows. I hope I was able to let you see that. It's not a lot of extra work. It's not the idea to require the analyst to do a bunch of extra things on top of what they're already doing. It's a way for the analyst to be very efficient, upload their raw data in a place where it can never get lost, submit it to QA, and move on with the rest of their day. Now that, proficiency test review travels through the Qualtrax system and lands at the desk or the dashboard of the quality manager. And it really just increases efficiency. It allows you to not let stuff slip through the cracks and keep yourself to task with these reminders. Again, you can configure if you would also like email reminders for all of your tasks, some of your tasks, or just super important tasks. All configurable by the user. And let's see, Karen, I think I'm ready to hand it back to you.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Ross, so very much for taking us through that. And we really appreciate your detail and everything that you've put into the presentation. And what I'm going to do just to finish us up, Dr. Ross, can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, you can see this Qualtrax screen?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm going to do right now is just finish up a couple of other notes about, Qualtrax and go from there. So real fast, what we've seen with Qualtrax and Cannabis Labs has been quite interesting. I mean, recently in the last year, we've been contacted by a number of cannabis laboratories looking for some help with accreditation management in terms of software. With all of the increased regulations that we see from the state and the compliance burdens that they're under, they're really looking for a solution to help with this. With some of the established markets like food, water, forensics, toxicology laboratories that have been accrediting for many years, it was natural for us to, since we're helping with those, to start helping with cannabis laboratories as well. When we start talking to cannabis laboratories, we hear a lot of different scenarios. Some people are starting up relatively quickly, and so they're onboarding people quickly and need to get them trained and moving very fast, and they're looking for solutions to help with that. Maybe they're even expanding into multiple sites, and so having something to support that. Or even a scenario where maybe a VP of operations or a consultant is acting more as a quality manager for some of these smaller laboratories. And through Qualtrics, you're actually able to help manage some of those efforts. We've been working with laboratories for 15 plus years, specifically to ISO 17025 and TNI, BFT, and some other compliance initiatives. We also work with people that are ISO 9001, GMP, GLP, GCP, FDA compliance, and so we've also been contacted by growers as well. We work with hundreds of laboratories in multiple different types of industries. The solution itself can be used for more than just quality management. And so onboarding processes and different trainings that you would need to do within the organization as a whole are things that you can do with the system. And we've also been able to really work with accrediting bodies ANAB actually is a user of Qualtrax. They use it for their ISO 17011 accreditation, but we also work with them and others to really understand the compliance burdens that their customers are under, to kind of see where Qualtrax fits into that equation. So as Dr. Ross showed you all of the core features of the product, this is just a quick snapshot of when we say we're an all-in-one compliance management solution, what we're really referring to. And so all of your documents and all of that management, all of the workflows or processes that you need to automate. And she did a great job of showing corrective actions and proficiency testing, but you're not limited to just those. There's other workflows that I'll be able to show you that you can do in the system too. Tracking competency and trainings within the system, and then all three of those sit on a reportable platform. If you're putting data into Qualtrax, we want to make sure that you're able to get it out. When specifically talking about workflows, we have our best-in-class workflows that you will get with Qualtrax. And so these best-in-class workflows include our corrective action requests, internal auditing, proficiency testing, vendor approvals, and validations. So that if you purchase the system, these will already come in stock. However, you're not limited to those. You have access to our workflow library where you can pull in more, like customer complaints or calibration procedures, or you can even create your own. We have our own workflow designer, so you can do more specific processes that are that your organization might need. Dr. Ross mentioned that one of the nice things about Qualtrax, you can access it from anywhere, especially if you are an organization that is trying to speed up or trying to spin up multiple sites or are going to have multiple labs located in multiple locations. Qualtrax Hosted is a really great way to allow everyone that needs to access the system to access it from anywhere on demand. There's some other benefits I'd like to point out if you go hosted. Number one, it's very minimal IT involvement from your side. We're going to take all the IT heavy lifting off of your plates. And so we're going to spin up the systems. It's really a turnkey experience to make sure that we can get it up running for you so you can start with implementation quickly. We also guarantee 100% uptime. In fact, if you were to go down and your system was to go down, we will actually give you money towards your subscription for that. Also, system monitoring. We are watching that system 24 hours a day, and we'll make sure that it's always up to date. And we have a pretty aggressive development schedule with our engineers, and so we're always looking to make new upgrades and for the product itself. And so we will automatically put those upgrades into your system for you. All right. So when you purchase Qualtrax, we really just don't hand over the software and say good luck. We really want to make sure that you get the most out of your investment. And so what we do is actually pair you with our services department. These are individuals that will work with you to train you on how to use Qualtrax. We take the trainer approach to make sure that you have the power and you have the knowledge to be able to administer the system, configure it, and train your users on how to use it. The great thing about this team is that they're actually coming from a background of ISO compliance within a laboratory. And so they have used Qualtrax prior to joining our team themselves. And so they're able to come with that expertise and that consultative type approach. And so to give you best practices on how to use the system. They have an amazing satisfactory score of 4.89 out of 5. And so what we find is that our user base is really appreciative of what they can bring to the table. And these individuals are always making sure that their experience is up to date, whether they are on internal and external auditing teams. They're also always doing educational type events to make sure that they are on top of some of the changes that are happening with the standards. So as we finish up this presentation, we're going to jump to our questions and answer sessions. The thing if you have questions on Qualtrax, again, you can please put them into the Q&A session, but you can also reach out to us at any time, either myself or Dr. Kim Ross, and we'll be happy to answer questions for you. At this time, we will go ahead and pull up some questions. And I see some of the questions are coming in through chat. And so we can go ahead and answer those as well. But Dr. Ross, are you with me?
I sure am.
Wonderful. All right. First question that we've got. So you say Qualtrax is fully customizable, but how does your new lab know what to customize?
Oh, that's a great question, Karen. So in my experience working, side by side with Qualtrics, with an implementation specialist or product consultant, is how you learn the system. So Qualtrics will offer you training, and during those training sessions, you will be able to use their specialists as a resource to understand how the system works and what functionalities you can take advantage of. Because you're right. It is hard when you are just starting with a new system to understand its capabilities. And so it's a really great feedback loop to say, hey, I'd really like to document my employee training. How do I do that? And they can show you those options. So that's what I would recommend.
Great. Thank you for that. Here's another question that just came in. My lab's budget is pretty tight. How much does Qualtrax cost for a cannabis laboratory? And this might be both of us answering this question a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I can't speak to for any particular laboratory what the cost would be, because it's going to depend on the number of concurrent users that you want. So if you have a very small laboratory, you might need a few less concurrent users than if you have a large laboratory. It basically depends on the size of your lab, but I can tell you from my experience, it's a really reasonable investment for the benefits that you gain. For example, I think just the remote access to the quality system on its own is a benefit that is well worth the price point. I'll turn it over to you, Karen.
Sure. And to kind of go, what we like to do, Qualtrax is a subscription license-based model. And to really give you a price of what it would cost, we need to do a little bit of an analysis on your laboratory, your size, and how everyone is going to be interacting with the product. And so we have different licensing levels to really address that. It's really easy for us to do, and we would just jump on a call. You give us some information specifically about your users, and we can put something together for you to show you about what this would look like for your organization. All right. Here's another question. And Dr. Ross, I can answer this one if you want me to. Is the system CFR Part 11 compliant?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'll let you take that, Karen.
Okay. Yes, we absolutely can handle CFR Part 11. The way that works is we need to understand a little bit about the organization. Are they being FDA regulated? Do they need to validate their software? The system itself does have electronic signature capabilities, and so you have that ability as well. If they do need to validate software and you need to go through that process, there's some additional packages that we can add on to your or to help with that to make sure that you're doing those validation processes. Does that help answer that question? Yes, wonderful. All right, and I've got another one here. We are a small company, under 10 people. Do you think Qualtrax would be something that we could use?
I'll jump in on that, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like to see laboratories, even if they start off small, take the step and implement the quality control software system right off the bat, because once a lab is up and processing lots of samples per day, sometimes implementation can get pushed back and just pushed back and pushed back. So no matter how small the lab is, I suggest starting off with the document control system, especially, which is one of the portals that Qualtrax offers. And I encourage laboratories, if you're in the initial funding stages, putting together your equipment lists and software needs, I would absolutely include Qualtrax into your budget right off the bat.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. And I'll speak from our point or from our standpoint too. When we talk to cannabis laboratories that are looking for systems, if they're under 10 people, a lot of times they could be in a scenario where they don't necessarily have a dedicated quality manager that's been hired specifically to manage quality. And so the director of operations or technical directors are often given those tasks, and in addition to doing other things for the laboratory total. So, but if you were able to get Qualtrax in, it can almost act as an assistant in terms of reminding people, keeping people up to date with their quality initiatives.
Absolutely, I agree, Karen.
All right. Can it be used for growers? Absolutely. We've talked to some. The system is very configurable in the sense that it really doesn't matter what type of compliance burden you're under. We can bring that into Qualtrax. Since it comes from the system itself stems from a culture of ISO and compliance. It really is designed to help meet those requirements. And so you could bring in GMP, you can bring in the CFR Part 11, you could bring in GLP or some of those other requirements that we see the growers going through.
That's a great question. I just want to jump in and say I've been thinking a lot lately about the grower side and production and processing. So especially, we call them MIPS, marijuana infused product manufacturers. Some of these are really big players and they have very robust internal quality control systems. So they could certainly leverage Qualtrax as an employee testing and training module, as their document control portal, because they will have SOPs that need revision control, and many of them are aspiring to be GMP compliant, and I think this would be a great affordable tool for them to implement.
Great. Well, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We are honored to have you join us. We have hit the 3 o'clock mark Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so very much for your questions. And Dr. Ross, thank you so very much for your detail and taking us through the system of Qualtrax and sharing your information with us today. We truly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. Thank you so very much, and have a great day.